There's something in the works that could be the next big thing to skyrocket the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin ETFs. These ETFs have been in a dogfight with the SEC for years now, and it seems that we might finally be coming to a kind of peace treaty here. If you don't already know, an ETF, aka an exchange-traded fund, is a basket of securities that can be traded throughout the day like a stock. An ETF can track an industry, a sector, or really any asset, like Bitcoin potentially. ETFs are typically used to diversify. Here's an example of the value of diversification in an ETF. So let's say that one cow costs you $100. You own the whole cow, you get the entire yield of that cow's milk. However, there's a bit of risk here because that cow may have a rough day and produce zero milk and you're out of luck. That's kind of like owning an individual stock or asset. Now, let's say you have a cow ETF, which is actually a thing, believe it or not. But let's say you buy $100 worth of a cow ETF that holds 10 cows. You get 10% of whatever is produced. This protects you more against the highs and the lows of a single cow operation, giving you a more stable return. ETFs have a lot of popularity and thus a lot of buying power behind them. In fact, in 2020, there were over $7.7 trillion in ETFs just in the US alone. And you know what else has a ton of buying power? A Bitcoin credit card. I just applied for one of these bad boys. Let me give you the highlights real quick because I'm stoked to get mine in the mail and try it out and get some Bitcoin. So this card gives you 1.5% cash back on all purchases in Bitcoin directly to your account. So you buy $100 in groceries, you get $1.50 back in Bitcoin. It's pretty cool. I'm excited about it. Also, like I said, I just applied and it took me literally 5 minutes to apply. They did a soft credit check and I was approved right away. So now let's talk about a brief history of Bitcoin ETFs. It's been 8 years since the first of many filings for a Bitcoin ETF. And the first one was by none other than the Winklevoss twins. And yet we still do not have an ETF to this day for Bitcoin. The history of failures to get a Bitcoin ETF approved may lead you to think, why am I sitting here even talking about it if it's not going to happen? Seems like it's never going to happen, but the time may finally be right for an ETF, a Bitcoin ETF, to actually happen. A Bitcoin ETF called Purpose Bitcoin just recently got approved in Canada and is already being traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange under ticker symbol BTCC. The fund is worth $840 million and has a fairly high management fee, so I think there's still plenty of room for improvement in this area. But then on top of this approval in Canada, cryptocurrency as a whole has done a whole lot of maturing recently, with Bitcoin hitting $1 trillion in market cap at one point this year before kind of shrinking back down, but now we're inching back up there. Bitcoin futures have been traded now for 3 years and are showing success. Many reputable platforms are now offering Bitcoin custody services like PayPal and Square, and many organizations are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets, and it's just being taken more and more seriously. And the SEC is finally saying that with the right regulations, this could be done, which means nothing but great things for Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. So the possible ways a Bitcoin ETF could be formatted, we're going to cover 3 possible ways. First off is direct ownership. This is how Purpose Bitcoin, that Canadian fund, does things. You buy a share of their ETF and then they buy a proportional amount of Bitcoin and hold that in a cold wallet for you, so you don't have to actually hold the crypto or worry about the security of that crypto. The second way is through indirect ownership or tracking of the asset itself. So you could buy a share in a fund that simply tracks the price of Bitcoin without direct ownership. This is actually called an ETN, an exchange traded note. And an important note here about exchange traded notes, for both of these first 2 options, you don't actually get diversification benefits of an ETF if they just hold Bitcoin. That's why a potential third option would be an ETF that holds multiple cryptocurrencies. An ETF could hold anywhere from one crypto asset to hundreds. Now, this isn't to say that this would be perfectly safe, because the entire crypto market can swing 10% in a single day, but it would give you more diversification than just one crypto asset in an ETF. Also, side note, a few days ago, I mentioned I was doing a beta release for my free daily newsletter covering things like crypto, stocks, and just the biggest finance news. Oh, and Papa John's word of the day, no affiliation to the pizza. I limited the beta release to 1,000 people and it filled in 13 hours. Well, that cap is firm because I want to get things right before I totally open it up, but I linked down in the description the ability to join the newsletter's waitlist. Just pop in your email there and I'll let you know once it's totally opened up. And I can tell by the feedback here that this thing is going to be huge, so check that out, linked in the description. Now let's talk updates to the ETF, to the Bitcoin ETF. The first update is huge. Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, has recently spoken about his optimism for the future of Bitcoin ETFs, although he sees them being approved under the 1940s Investment Company Act, which governs mutual funds, not ETFs. This is different than most ETFs, as most applications have been filed under 1930s laws that allow stock exchanges to list as ETPs, exchange-traded products. It gets really technical really fast, but the difference between these two isn't just academic. There's much more strict rules and regulations for mutual fund laws. And this could affect the appeal of a crypto ETF both positively or negatively. Some might find that the added security and structure may be more appealing, while others might feel this is too much of a burden and this would require too much hassle and too much oversight. Gary Gensler, that he would like to see steps taken in investor protections before the approval of a Bitcoin ETF, because right now he feels cryptos are, quote, the Wild West, which they're still new. We're still learning about these. It's an entirely new industry. This doesn't stop him from having a positive outlook on crypto as a whole, though. Gary said that Bitcoin has, quote, been and could continue to be a catalyst for change in the fields of finance and money, which I don't know about you, but this gives me a lot of hope that the SEC will work with companies and finally push through a Bitcoin ETF with the proper rules in place. After all, if we want cryptocurrencies to be huge, we want regulations, because that's just going to mean the whole system is a little bit more smooth and the consumer protections that are there, and it's just going to open it up to more and more people. Another update here is Google cryptocurrency ads. Now, this isn't directly correlated with Bitcoin ETFs, but this could have an impact on them if we see the rollout of a Bitcoin ETF this year. Google has had a ban on cryptocurrency related businesses and services as a whole for a while now. But as of August 3rd, 2021, a change to their financial products and services policy will be put into effect. And this will allow for the advertisement of crypto related businesses and services, as well as clarification on the requirements to do so. And this is huge for crypto as a whole, as Google ads are the top dogs in advertising. And the release of a Bitcoin ETF later in the year could potentially piggyback off of an influx of crypto-related ads on Google, leading to a lot of eyes on Bitcoin and crypto ETFs. And then we have the almighty Cathie Wood. There are currently 12 Bitcoin ETF filings in the SEC pipeline, some of which are issued by names you've probably never heard of, although one stands out: the ARK 21 shares Bitcoin ETF. If people like Cathie Wood, a celebrity investor, are at the table for a Bitcoin ETF, it's definitely good news for the future of the product. Now let's talk about why this is a big deal. First off is public accessibility. Accessibility has been a huge talking point for crypto as a whole, especially for DeFi, which that might be a while before we see a lot of accessibility there. But a lot of people feel for crypto in general, and in this case, Bitcoin, to be adopted, accessibility and the user interface needs to be improved across the board. And I have to agree with this. Sites like Coinbase, make it easier, but that doesn't mean that my grandma is going to be comfortable in buying crypto at this point on Coinbase. An ETF is a step in the direction towards accessibility to way more investors who could buy a share in a crypto ETF on their favorite stock brokerage and effectively own whatever cryptocurrency they may like. And then next we have IRA money. Well, 17% of Americans own Bitcoin, 75% of Americans have retirement accounts, and there is a ton of money in those accounts. And Bitcoin is just waiting for a slice of that massive pie. Now, I'm not saying Nana should go out and load up on Bitcoin in her Roth IRA, but even 0.5% of IRA funds going towards crypto is enough to boost up that market, where the market is still in its infancy. And then we have public opinion and sentiment. Over time, crypto has slowly gained more and more trust in the broader society, but it has a long ways to go. I mean, in 2016, I'd be willing to bet that if a poll got sent out asking if Bitcoin was a scam, the majority of people would have answered yes, where today that answer would be far different. ETFs and big stock exchanges hold this kind of prestige and respect by investors of all types, and this credibility would help lend itself into cryptos. And I think, again, this would just help out cryptos as a whole. So in summary, it seems the needle is being moved forward for a crypto ETF. That would be nothing but good things for current crypto holders. We don't know at what price various cryptos will be next week or the week after that, but it seems the way that tech is headed and the way that society is headed in the long run, cryptos are here to stay and they will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's going to do it for today. Join the waitlist for my newsletter in the description. And if you want that Bitcoin credit card, check that out, linked down there as well. I'd like to thank you for watching and I hope you have a profitable day.